Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to today's webinar, Outpace the Market, Real-Time Market Intelligence for P&C Carriers. Let's go ahead and do some brief introductions. Let me turn it over to Somiyaji.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all on the webinar here today. I'm Somiyaji. I'm the Zesty AI product manager, working with our team to bring our generative AI products to life. A little bit about myself. I've spent the last decade building solutions just like what we'll show you today to modernize very heavily regulated, document-centric industries. Most recently, I built and deployed generative AI solutions for nuclear power plants around the world. And I'm really looking forward to show you all today what we've made at Zesty AI with Zoro.
Awesome. Thanks, Somiyaji. And me, I'm Sam Fetchero. I work on the marketing team here at Zesty AI. So let me tell you a little bit about Zesty AI if you're not familiar with us already. We're a property and climate risk analytics platform fueled by the power of data science. It all starts with the data. Zesty AI creates proprietary data from a wide range of data sources, including aerial and terrestrial imagery, building permits, climatology, regulatory filings, and more. This diverse and proprietary data feeds our platform, where we apply AI to create industry-leading products, including risk insights, predictive risk models, and now streamline and automate insurance operations with our Zoro platform. And this is the future. So today, we're going to talk about one use case for the Zoro platform, Zoro Discover, which uses agentic AI to deliver competitive intelligence. Overall, our solutions help insurance carriers write new business with precision, refine their rating models for fairer pricing, optimize their portfolios for greater resilience, and streamline their operations, all while maintaining the highest standards of compliance and transparency. We want to hear from you during this webinar. So our first audience poll is, how often do you use AI at work? Okay, we have regularly and occasionally, both at about a third, a little more than a third. Some folks are still experimenting, only a small portion not using AI at all. Somiyaji, any comments on the results here?
Yeah, this tracks exactly with what we're hearing when we talk to carriers. They're all using it at different levels of involvement. I think the deeper question they always have is, are they using it reliably, consistently, and effectively? And uh, they don't know.
Awesome, thanks. Well, so it's about 70% using regularly or occasionally. Let me compare that with a survey that we did recently. We surveyed over 350 insurance professionals back in June across a wide range of carriers, small MGAs to large national carriers, and a wide range of roles, actuaries, product managers, underwriters. We found that it was about 88% use AI at least occasionally, very close to what we saw, maybe about 77%. And again, just that small portion not using AI at all. So just another data point to compare your usage of AI against the industry. We also asked those same P&C insurance professionals what their biggest challenges were using AI at work. So we found that concerns about reliability was the biggest barrier at 44%. Training was just under that with rounding. It was also at 44%. And then difficulty integrating AI into workflows, not having enough time, not knowing where to start, overall lack of investment also made the list. So some more data for you to benchmark where you might be. But overall, there's no denying that AI is transforming the industry from the ground up. In another survey, this one from the Institute for Business Value, 77% of insurance CEOs believe that generative AI is necessary to keep pace with competitors. Even as AI gains ground, insurance has become a commodity in the eyes of consumers. With online shopping and easy policy switching, price has become the primary differentiator. So in response, carriers are making constant changes behind the scenes, modifying coverage terms, policy exclusions, distribution strategies to stay competitive without sacrificing margins. But it's hard to see how the market is shifting in real time. To win today, you need strategic visibility. You need to understand at scale how competitors are structuring their products, pricing risk, where they're placing bets across markets and channels. The pace of change is relentless. Since the year 2000, half of the companies on the Fortune 500 have dropped off the list. These are some of the most established, well-resourced businesses in the world, and yet many couldn't keep up. And that same pressure is hitting insurance. Even in a timeless industry built on long-term stability, change is catching up. So we looked at the top 20 carriers in commercial and homeowners insurance in the year 2000. And then you look at those same companies today, 25% of companies have lost their position. In a commoditized market where pricing and underwriting are the key differentiators, staying ahead of your peers isn't optional, it's survival. Technology and the proliferation of AI have also impacted the regulatory environment. The regulatory environment has changed in many ways. You think about the politics have changed, the public scrutiny on regulations have changed, the complexity of regulations have changed, and the size and scope of regulatory filings have changed dramatically. So here we looked at homeowners insurance, but the same would be true across any line of business. In the year 2009, the longest filing as far as number of pages was 38,000 pages. Now, that's a lot of pages. So let's fast forward in time. Let's look at last year. The largest filing was over 346,000 pages. If you read this filing at 1 page per minute, it would take you 240 days to read it. And just looking at last year, there were more than 50 filings over 10,000 pages, almost 400 filings, more than 1,000 pages. And that's one of the things we've come to deeply appreciate how complex and demanding the regulatory environment is in insurance. And we've been in the trenches ourselves. We work closely with the California Department of Insurance for years, starting all the way back in the early development of Zfire. And as we've added new models, we kept going. For example, bring our Storm Suite to the Midwest, Great Plains, and the South. So across all this, we've now had over 70 approved filings in more than 30 states covering 5 different risk models. And what we've learned in this process, regulations and filings, incredibly text heavy, complex documents with nuanced language. It takes deep institutional knowledge to navigate them. And there's almost no room for error. A single misstep can jeopardize approvals or have downstream impacts on rating, underwriting, or compliance. So this experience hasn't just helped us build compliant models, but it's helped us understand your world. And we know firsthand just how much time and expertise it takes to navigate the system well. And that's why we're so focused on building tools that make that easier. When we first started digging into Surf, we thought it'd be pretty straightforward. Pull down some filings, search for what you need, and move on. But the reality was brutal. Teams were opening 300-page filings or maybe 300,000-page filings, hitting Control F, pray that you find what you're looking for. It's fragmented state by state. You end up spending hours or even weeks just chasing down information. To keep up, teams build complex spreadsheets or homegrown databases. It's manual, error prone, and by the time you have the data organized, you're already behind. So, what should it look like instead? Teams should be able to type a natural language question like they would in Google or ChatGPT and instantly see structured insights. You shouldn't be waiting a week for filings to show up or managing giant spreadsheets to track competitors. They should get a real time, unified view of filings with secure AI powered search that will deliver the answer in seconds. So, in short, the way the industry does competitive research today is slow, manual, and frustrating. But the expectation and frankly the need is for it to be fast, smart, and scalable. So before we dig into the solution, we have our second audience polling question. So we want to hear from you. How does your organization currently handle competitive intelligence? Here we go. Manual research, 79%. So most of our audience is there. We see some third-party tools just below 50%, some homegrown solutions at 31%, and then some limited use of consultants, and then a couple folks not doing research today. That's okay. Somiyaji, you're chatting with clients every day. Does this match kind of what you see in the market and any implications from this?
Yeah, it's very consistent with what we're seeing when we talk to carriers. But I think the single biggest signal that we hear whenever we talk to anybody about this problem is that no matter what tool or solution carriers are using, the overwhelming feeling is that just the data is too much. So no matter what they try or no matter what we try to do, there's an overload of information. To put it in perspective, in the US since 2023, just for homeowner filings, there's been over 56,000 of them that have been submitted. And that means there's nearly 10 million pages of information spread out across 580,000 documents. And if you look at this and think, if you want to do an exhaustive search for any type of query, it's pretty much humanly impossible to find a complete answer. So the challenge isn't that there's a lack of data or even finding the data. It's really trying to find the critical signals inside all of this noise to be able to make actionable strategic decisions on, that's the real challenge we're hearing. So in response to all of this feedback we've heard, that's why we built Zoro Discover. This is our generative AI assistant that specializes in insurance specific content. So it has access to all the latest public insurance filings, along with a very deep understanding of insurance language and context. Now, after giving access to all of this information, we're starting to expand to give Zora Discover more knowledge on rules and laws, things like actuarial guidelines, to give better understanding of the insurance landscape. And we're doing all of this with our deep knowledge of data science practices and our foundation that we built, Zesty AI on. And that's allowing us to unlock solutions to use cases for things like competitive intelligence and regulatory research. And soon we'll even be able to expand into doing quality control on draft filings and ultimately even drafting those filings, the first version of them, with access to all of this knowledge base and over the last many years of information that we've collected, using all of that to generate these new ones from scratch.
As we close this webinar, there's still time to get your questions in. I see a lot have already come through, and we're going to do our best to get through as many as we can. And we're going to put Somayaji on the hot seat. So get your questions in. What data sources does Zora Discover use for filings? So I can grab this one. Zora Discover ingests filings through a series of data pipelines. They're proprietary data pipelines where we can maintain the structure and the format of each document. And so it'll allow you to search each component, the rate manuals, the rule pages, and the forms seamlessly. Okay, this next one, this is from Kathy. Can Zora Discover hallucinate or give inaccurate information? Somayaji.
Yeah, I can take this one, Sam. So Zorro is grounded in all the structured data and verified documents that were shown in the example demo. So every answer that it generates has a citation along with it with the exact filing, carrier, state it came from. So you can always trust, verify it, and use it with confidence. The architecture is set up in a way that hallucination, making stuff up, stuff we know, things we know is common with LLM models, is impossible. But the actual generative layer of Zoro can draw incorrect conclusions if the data that it's pulling from is unclear. Just like us, when we look at filings, if the data is not clear, we don't know what conclusion to draw. So to mitigate this, we always again provide user-facing features that allow you to go back and see the exact source that it came from and verify any conclusions that Zora is drawing.
Thanks, Somayaji. Okay, this next one, Eric. How does Zoro Discover handle privacy and data retention compared to ChatGPT style tools? Well, I can grab this. So the generative AI capabilities within Zoro are powered by enterprise grade LLM providers. And so we have binding agreements in place that contractually guarantee your data inputs and outputs are never used to train the models or shared with other customers. And all the processing occurs within a secure private tenant. So this will ensure complete data isolation and total confidentiality. Okay, this is an anonymous question. How does Zora Discover process tables in regulatory filings?
Yeah, I can take this one, Sam. So as we process any of the documents that we ingest, Zoro uses what we call a table-aware strategy. So we preserve the table entirely during the processing. Um, as part of the process, we do what's called chunking of the data. So wherever possible, we store an entire table as a single chunk. But when the tables are very large, as we know is possible in these filings, they may be split up, but we link them together. So again, if Zora is trying to retrieve a certain rate table that's many pages long, the system can retrieve them in chunks and reconstruct them during the analysis. So we also apply a few, advanced techniques like hierarchical chunking that makes accuracy better, and we also are working on refining the pipeline to handle even more complex data structures, including graphs and images that may exist.
Or another anonymous question, what filing data is in the system? Kind of address that at the beginning. Maybe Somayaji, you want to add anything to what I shared?
Yeah, so in the demo, you saw there was some homeowner filings in the filter list. The team is wrapping up quality checks on all other filings, and so we expect to be able to make all PNC filings from 2015 onwards available as soon as that quality process is done in the next few weeks.
Awesome. Okay, Ryan has a couple questions. How does Zoro deal with confidential filing components?
Yeah, so if the filing is filed as, a trade secret or confidential and, the public domain doesn't have access to it, Zoro doesn't have access to it at this point. It's just not possible.
Makes sense. Second follow-up from Ryan. How does Zoro deal with pending versus approved filings for insights, as well as prior approval versus file and use implementation?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's a challenge we had to solve early on. Um, Zoro, the model is instructed to understand what the different states of the filings are. So if it's looking at the most recent filing, which is pending, it'll know that it's not a fully approved filing yet and adjust its answers accordingly. If there are previously approved versions of the filings, it will also know that there's a history there. What it where filing moves from pending to approved, the approved one will be used, not the pending one.
Makes sense. Anonymous question for you, Somayaji. How often are filings updated?
So we are updating them. We're updating them daily, and we'll be releasing a daily pipeline within, I think, the next week. All users will have a daily refresh.
Awesome. This is from Leo. Does this work well with pulling competitor trend selections, or maybe more broadly, how does Zoro Discover handle trending?
Yeah, so as you kind of saw in the demo, it's a very broad product and able to understand insurance context. So if you're interested in understanding trends across competitors, you just kind of have to craft your prompt in a way that Zoro is answering your question. So if you're interested in a certain state and seeing how a carrier has changed their filing over time, that's a question you can ask. You can use the grid mode to pull the different filings over time and see them side by side and see the change in a certain attribute over time as well. So it's really kind of a user-driven workflow to help you build your own analysis wherever you are in Zoro and answer, specific questions with insurance context.
So, Miyagi, I'm going to keep hitting you with these questions. You're doing a great job. This is from Cody. Is there any capability, or is it on the roadmap to build premium comparison?
Yeah, I mean, if I understand the question correctly, being able to compare filings is something we've heard from, everyone we've talked to. So our first version of that was the grid mode, where it's kind of a choose your own comparison approach. Where we're now moving to is recently we released a summaries feature. So we generate a unique summary for filings when users request it. And it will have certain attributes if it's a rate filing or a rule filing or a combination filing. Um, and pretty soon in that same reports functionality, we'll be able to have comparison across different filings, different states, different carriers with those attributes kind of adjustable by the user. So that would be kind of the premium comparison versus the basic grid comparison that I showed today.
Perfect. Finally, one I can answer this one from Jason. Is the trial version the full version, or do you get limited features? No, we're not going to cut off your features in the trial. You scan that code and we get you set up with a trial. It's the full version. Okay. This is from Alan. Can this tool summarize and or categorize the types of objections the insurance industry received from selected states?
Yeah, this is also a really good question. We've heard it many times. So today, Zoro does can answer this question. If you asked it, summarize the objections in a certain state for, XYZ carriers, one or multiple, it will do a good job of that. What we are working on also is a more targeted objection management tool that will kind of do this in a more premium capacity, if you will.
There are a couple questions about forms. Maybe I'll try to summarize these into a single question. This is from Zena. Since filings only include specific pages with changes sometimes, how do you build out the full manual if the form is spread across multiple filings? I think I articulated that the right way.
Yeah. Again, another question very common that we hear. As we know, certain filings only include updates. Some filing might have been submitted, back in 2015, and just like minor updates ever since then have been filed. So Zoro is capable of stitching that together. So it knows, one carrier has a filing across multiple years. And depending on the mode you're in, if you're in Explore mode, which was the first kind of broad start a new chat mode that I showed, you can just ask the broad question and it will stitch together as best it can across the multiple filings. If you're trying to be more focused, you can add the specific filings and choose yourself, the original filing plus the next five filings, and then ask whatever question or research you're trying to do. And because it understands that, there's a sequence to this, it understands how filings are submitted and updated over time, it'll be able to kind of build together an across filing report across multi-filing report.
Awesome. All right, this is from Kristen. Does this provide filing numbers for all the filing it's pulling so we'll be able to see the full filing, including any objections in the filing?
Yeah, so whenever we respond with whenever Zora responds with an answer and you click on a citation, it'll show you what the surf number is, so you can go and look at the full filing in its entirety. Um, all the documents, like I showed, are loaded into Zora. So if you click on a citation, it'll take you to a certain document in that filing. You can always go to that same filing, add it to your conversation, and see other documents from that same filing. So you'll have access to the full filing inside Zoro. You can also um, access it through Surf and download your entire filing.
This is from Jason. Can I search for a surf and Zoro gives me the highlights of the filing? So rate and indication, notable changes. Is that a use case for Zoro?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. So in the filing finder, anytime you search for a filing, there's some predefined values we show in the results table. One of those is, the rate change, the rate impact. Expanding any rows, like I showed briefly in the demo, has a bunch of metadata. Some of those metadata fields are the ones being asked for. And then the next thing is the summary that Zoro generates. So if you want to see a more detailed breakdown of the different values and objections and objectives of the filing, opening up the summary will give you a very crisp outline of that feature or of that filing without having to open the actual filing itself.
Jason has some good questions. He's a little tongue in cheek. Can I download the filing from Zoro and then go and hit Control F on it if I want to?
Yeah, so whenever we open a citation in the PDF viewer, there's options to download that document and do more searches. Um, and you can Control F on any part of that filing.
Let's talk about lines of business that are going to be added. So, farm owners, is that something that Zoro would potentially handle? Searching state statutes, or what about an MCP for Zoro to integrate it?
So farm owners is part of the data set we're expanding in the next few weeks. Like I said, we're completing our quality checks on the data. We want to make sure that when you ask Zoro questions, you're getting answers you can rely on. So we have a very rigorous internal QA process that we try to implement whenever we add a new data set. For MCP, we don't support MCP right now, but it is something we're considering in our longer term roadmap, as well as exposing, the data through APIs, for example, if that's depending on what the market um, would get the most value out of. It is on our roadmap.
So, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure to grab those resources that we shared, access to Zoro or a demo, the state of the industry research study, and sign up for our next webinar with the Tennessee Insurance Commissioner. And we want to know your feedback on the session. Let us know what you think, how we can improve next time. And we'd love to stay connected. So you can find my email address and Somayaji's at the bottom of the screen. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.